Dr. Christine Hartmann comes from Boston. She's been doing a study about glaucoma and glaucoma patients and those affected by glaucoma, and she is here to address us. Christine, welcome.
Hello. Well, I don't want to talk about glaucoma. Well, that's obviously not me because I'm up here in front of the microphone, but it might be you. Is it? I am actually writing a book about glaucoma from the patient's perspective, and one of the first things I learned was that there are a lot more people who do not want to talk about having glaucoma than there are who want to talk about it, like Vivian just did. And that's pretty understandable from my perspective. I also have glaucoma, and I understand that that can be a very scary concept, that one of the first things that comes to mind is, oh my gosh, am I going to lose my sight? And for most people, that at least initially can be very frightening. And that fear, if not by itself, among other things, can keep you from wanting to talk about it. And I think that's one of the challenges in the book that I'm writing, is to capture the perspective of people who really don't want to speak about glaucoma. So there's some people I've spoken to already who have said, look, this is the last thing I want to talk about it. I keep it a secret. Nobody knows I have it. I hold it together when I go to the doctor and act like it's no big deal. And then I go home and I don't tell a soul. And then there's some other people, like one of the quotes up here, where they actually told some people, some of their good friends, and expected those friends then periodically to ask, well, you know, how's it going? How are you doing with it? And those friends, maybe because of their own fears, don't say anything. And so that person was feeling very isolated even though they had told people. So I think this is one of those things where I would love to hear your stories, but there's so many of the people out there who don't want to share their stories that I can't push anybody in the direction that they don't want to go in. But let me just tell you a little bit about my project once I figure out, page up. Ooh, that wasn't the right one. Aha, got it. So the title of my book is Understanding Glaucoma from the Inside Out, and the inside, of course, is the perspective of the patient. And the project itself is a series of interviews that I'm doing. So I've done some of them, and I'm actually here for a week. I am from Boston. I'm at Boston University, and I work at the VA, the Department of Veterans Affairs, at the VA Medical Center in Bedford, Massachusetts. That's where I have my full-time job, and the writing is something I do on the side. But I'm in the middle of conducting a series of interviews, and I'm doing them here in Philadelphia as well. And the goal is to get about 30 to 50 people to talk with me about their stories about what it's like to have glaucoma. In each of those stories, there are topics that emerge. And just like in Vivian's case, she was so happy to find somebody who had the same condition as she did. She said, oh, it's not great for them, but oh boy, am I excited to meet somebody who has the same condition I do. That is the goal of the book, to be able to find themes, to find topics that emerge in these interviews and consolidate them and put them into book form where each topic then becomes one chapter of the book. Another perspective for the book is that in each chapter where you have these topics that come up, like let's say medication, that's a topic that's already come up in Vivian's talk a lot, and I'm sure it's a topic for many of you. Medication, let's say that ends up being a chapter, then there will be a physician or researcher call-out box where there's a commentary on sort of state-of-the-art knowledge about that topic. So this is a book that's designed to be of use not only to patients who have the condition, but also ideally for ophthalmologists to understand what it's like to be a patient who has the condition. So this book isn't in existence yet. As I said, I'm doing the interviews right now, but there is a publisher with whom I have a contract, and it's Vanderbilt University Press. So the idea for the book is that it will, as soon as the manuscript is written, have a publisher. A little bit about myself. I'm a healthcare researcher. I do, as I said, work for the VA, and I'm at Boston University, and I do research on the quality of long-term care. So basically, quality of care in nursing homes. That's my area of expertise. I also have a book out already with Vanderbilt that's coming out actually in the next couple of days. And I'm someone who has glaucoma. I have open-angle glaucoma, normal tension. I've had laser surgeries. I've had 2 trabeculectomies with express shunts. I take medication, so I'm in the boat with many of you. I'd like to share with you a little bit about some of the interviews that I've done already. Now, I don't have a lot of time, and I don't want to take too much of your time. So what I've done is you will see there's a picture for every person who's speaking. That's not the person with whom I spoke. That's not the interviewee. But it's somebody I chose off of one of these websites where you can get people's pictures. So if you see yourself up there, it's because you were a model for some website, not because you're the person I spoke with. But I picked a person whose age, gender, race, ethnicity, and then I also tried to capture some of the affect of the actual person I spoke with in this picture. Okay? So this first one, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about how they answered the question that I asked them about how has your view of yourself changed? How do you think differently about yourself as a person because of your glaucoma? So this first person said, I know I don't like having it, but I'm more understanding now about people who have conditions they don't like or want, but they have to learn to deal with. So this probably makes me more understanding, maybe understanding of people with invisible conditions. Someone else I spoke with said, my husband had very poor eyesight when I married him, and he had glasses. So I think that all my marriage I worried one day he would be blind. And I would have real difficulty with that because he would be a very difficult person to live with if he were blind. But never did I think that something like glaucoma could happen to me. I never thought of it as life-altering, though. I just thought it was another passing. And I kind of take stuff like that as part of the process of life. I also spoke with a woman who had lost most of her sight, and she said, I find sometimes I just don't care as much as I used to. We're always conscious of dribbling something when we're eating, and sometimes I think, I'll wear that, and then I think, I wonder if there are any dribbles on it. And then I say, so what? Which isn't the right attitude, maybe. Or if I'm passing the nurse's station, I'll say to one of the aides, do I have anything spilled on my front? So I think I've changed a little in that way. I also spoke with a younger woman, said, I realize I do think of myself as somewhat disabled now, whereas that was not a word I would have used until very recently. But I see my glaucoma as more of a disability, because now it's the visual field loss, the cataract, the no longer being able to see 20/20. And all of that combined puts me in a category, in my own mind, of not functioning as well. And at work, I was hired to function at a certain level, and now without accommodation, there's no way I could function at that level. And finally, I am very grateful for the privilege of having had care by people I respect. I'm not into idol worship, but I guess my criteria is that I have two guys taking care of me I highly respect, and that gives me a great deal of, I guess, personal or emotional peace. I don't have any illusions. I think I do wait for the other shoe to drop, but it doesn't stop me from doing anything. I wrestle with my grandchildren, I work out, I read as much as ever. So those were just a couple snippets from the interviews I've done already. But you can see that there's some common themes that emerge in those interviews. So my plan is, as I said, to conduct more interviews and then to consolidate those topics, those themes that emerge from the interviews, and incorporate as well the opinions of the first people who were on the first slide, the people who said, I don't want to talk about it. So I've already decided my first chapter in the book will be called I don't want to talk about it. Because some of the people who pick up the book may be people who find it very difficult to speak about the fact that they have this illness, this disease, this process going on for them, and yet they're looking for some sort of resonation, that feeling that Vivian had with, oh my gosh, I found somebody who's like me. And that's the process of these interviews, is to try to capture as many people's perspective as possible so that in the end you have some themes that are common. One other thing I intend to do, as you saw up there, all those people were white folks, but we know that glaucoma disproportionately affects African Americans, and so it's definitely my commitment and my goal to have opinions of African Americans and others represented in this book, because that would not be an accurate representation otherwise. I also intend to get some, if they're willing, some parents of children who have glaucoma to speak with me about what it's like to have a child who has the disease, because that is a different perspective as well. And I'm committed to incorporating that. So the expected publication date, if I get my act together, is 2013. And as far as all of you, if any of you is one of those people who doesn't feel uncomfortable talking about this, I would love to speak with you. The interviews take about an hour. I have one set up already today at lunchtime, but I also have free time on Tuesday and Friday. And I will be at Will's. It says up here to contact Dr. Space Office, but you can actually find me. I'm here today all day. And if you are interested in speaking with me, we could set up a time either Tuesday or Friday, or if you feel comfortable stepping out for a little of the time today, then sometime today as well. You can also visit my website. I'm trying not to do the interviews via phone because I think there's a lot of rapport that can be developed face-to-face, and I find I do better interviews that way. But it's also possible to set up a phone interview if just coming back into Will's doesn't work for you. And then the last thing I'd like to say is that the people whom I've spoken with, and I think this speaks to what Vivian said, this feeling of rapport. It's been a learning experience, a very special experience for me to speak with the people I've spoken with so far. But it's also a big surprise to me, but every single person I spoke with at the end of the interview says, I told you things I never told anybody before. And I can't believe how much I've learned from speaking with you about my own disease. So I'd just like to put that out there, that even if you don't speak with me about your condition, that there might be somebody at some point with whom you feel comfortable, even chatting online. If you're one of those people that keeps quiet about it, maybe at some point take that step and reach out to somebody else, because you may actually find that that's a beneficial experience for you as well. So thank you very much for listening to me. I hope I see you around. If not, that you approach me. Then also that if you happen to pick up this book in a couple of years, that you get something good out of it. That's my intention. Thank you.